Welcome to The Speechy Show. Being a speech language pathologist often means having too much work and not enough planning time. To beat the overwhelm, we're bringing you the tricks and tools that will make your job a little bit easier. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Speechy Show. I am your host, Carrie Clark from SpeechAndLanguageKids.com, and I'm here today with Andrea from Forbes AAC. Thank you for joining us today, Andrea.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So we are talking today about AAC. We're going to talk about what do you do once you've decided that AAC is a good idea for a client. So we're going to talk about navigating that preliminary stages of evaluating and funding an AAC device. So welcome to the show. This is the Speechy Show. We do this I won't say every anymore. We've been, with all the holidays, we've been slacking a little. We do this every once in a while on a Monday, and we bring in a new guest, and we talk about speech language pathology. So we have lots of topics that we've covered, and I'm excited to talk today about AAC. So if you are watching with us live, welcome, hang tight. We're going to be giving you some awesome tips. We're going to be doing some giveaways and sharing some really good resources. So Andrea, while people are coming on, why don't you go ahead and introduce us to yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your company.
Sure. Yeah, so I am a speech language pathologist and now an assistive technology specialist with Forbes AAC. So my background, I graduated from University of Iowa with my master's in 2009 now. Whoa. And immediately went from there to working at St. Louis Children's Hospital on the augmentative communication team there. And got a lot of experience at Children's, comparing and contrasting different AAC systems, working to figure out which systems, both hardware and software wise, best met the needs of clients with, disabilities and communication impairments kind of across the board. And then in 2015, moved into this role with Forbes. And so as an assistive technology specialist with Forbes, I wear a bunch of different hats. But one of the biggest things that I do is help teams kind of know what's out there in terms of AAC technologies and then navigate the evaluation process. So, and that's everything from, assessing a client's needs to, kind of taking an inventory of what different types of systems are out there and which features are most important for each particular client.
That's wonderful. I feel like that's half the battle, is just figuring out what to do. There's so many wonderful options out there for AAC, which is such a blessing, but it also gets so overwhelming and it's just hard to know where to go.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely what do they call it? An embarrassment of riches. So you have so many options that it can be really difficult to kind of narrow the field down. And Forbes AAC is a company so we manufacture speech generating devices and accessories. And, a couple of the devices that I'll mention a few times today, we have two main series of devices. One is called the ProSlate series and one is called the WinSlate series. And, I wanted to kind of keep this talk more general, just to kind of send along resources and that kind of thing. But I definitely will include some links and information about those particular devices too, if people want to learn more.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay, so like she said, we're going to be sharing 5 tips with you here today. This is going to be about getting those AAC devices into the hands of children that you may be working with. And we're going to include those tips along with some of the more specific links if you're looking for the specific things that Forbes has to offer. But these tips are going to be helpful for you no matter what type of device or company that you are considering going with or even if you don't have a company to go with. So let's jump right in. We're going to share some tips and resources here right now. So the first tip is know the big players in the AAC world. Andrea, what does this look like for our speech language pathologists out in the field?
Yeah, so, the way that I encourage people to kind of get to know who's out there, one is by attending conferences. That can be a really huge deal. And, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, back when I was an evaluator, I didn't take advantage of that resource enough to go to local conferences. So I'm in Missouri. The local conference here is called MISHA, so the Missouri Speech Language Hearing Association. And then, of course, there are huge and amazing national conferences related specifically to AAC and assistive technology, like Closing the Gap is one that's amazing. It's in Minnesota every year. And ATIA is another really big one. And of course, taking a look at if you're not able to attend those conferences in person and kind of look through the exhibit hall and meet the different vendors and manufacturers that are out there, you can always look at the list of exhibitors, even if you're not an actual attendee at those conferences. And that gives you an idea of who the kind of big players in the field are, and, lets you know who's really out there, who is, kind of a leader in the field as far as participating in these kind of nationwide events and really driving the field forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good because, the big companies, the ones that can afford booths at these kinds of places, they're the ones that have the money to pour towards the research and development for these new technologies. They're the ones that are going to continue to be there, as opposed to someone who made an app on the App Store and then they're never going to support it again and they're not really in the field, So knowing who those big players are can really help you kind of just navigate all of the different options that are out there.
Yes, that is very true. And, certainly not to belittle anyone who's kind of new on the scene, because every company starts somewhere, that is for sure. But, in general, when you're thinking about a dedicated speech generating device, you do really want to consider the support that's going to be available to yourself or your client after the fact. And so, if you end up going with a company who maybe doesn't have a local rep or doesn't have a very robust tech support option, you can end up finding yourself with this amazing piece of hardware, but no idea how to use it. So, yeah, so that can be a pretty big deal to just, make yourself aware of who's out there and what types of resources are going to be available to you as a consumer from that company.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about knowing who the big players are. We talked about looking at who's exhibiting at some of those big conferences. The next tip we're going to go over is considering the funding source when you are going through this evaluation process. So Andrea, how does that look for our speech language pathologists?
Yeah, so what that will look like, so, in an instance where an SLP has, let's say a pediatric client, a kiddo who that this is a great AAC candidate, and you're kind of thinking, okay, what now? One of the big things that you'll want to do first is get an idea of how that device is going to be funded. So the typical funding sources for AAC are Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, school district funding, and then if you are working with an adult client who has VA benefits, that's another pretty frequent funding source. So, and the reason I kind of say that this is like your starting point is that certain funding sources have particular requirements that you need to fulfill as an evaluator. And using the example of Missouri Medicaid, which is tends to be one of the trickiest Medicaid to work with. Lucky us.
Yeah.
Missouri Medicaid is different from a lot of the other state Medicaids, and actually I think is the only one that does it this way. Missouri designates particular Medicaid approved AAC evaluation sites. So if your client has Medicaid and hopes to get a device funded through Medicaid, they need to be evaluated at one of those sites. Excuse me, lots of other states, any licensed SLP can complete an AAC evaluation. But Missouri is, one of those problem children where, if you're a licensed SLP with lots of AAC knowledge, but you are not officially a Medicaid evaluator, you will not be able to get a device funded as the recommending SLP. So in that instance, you'd have to refer to another team. So that's why I say go ahead.
Do they also have the requirement that an OT has to be a part of the evaluation?
It depends. So now that Yeah, Missouri has also split into some managed care plans, and each of them has a slightly different set of requirements, which makes it extra fun.
Yeah.
But yes, one of the managed care plans does ask that an OT be involved in the evaluation. Straight Medicaid requires that 3 different professionals sign off on the evaluation report. And so that could be, often it's 2 SLPs and maybe the referring physician. Often it's an SLP, an OT, and a PT, just kind of depending on what the person's team looks like. So it can be, there's some hoops to jump through for sure.
So the moral of the story is know your states, know your providers, and make sure you know what the requirements are so that you don't go through this whole process and then go, oh, well, if you wanted it funded, now we have to do it again this other way.
Yes, exactly. And I have had some SLPs go through that. And, these reports, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but these reports that you end up writing to get an AAC device funded are complex and they take some time. And I just am full of regret every time an SLP comes to me and has done an evaluation, but it turns out that they actually couldn't be the evaluator for that kiddo because that just is so much time down the tubes for them. So yeah, that is a really important first step. And we're going to talk in just a bit too about some of the resources that are available to you once you do know what the funding source is.
Perfect. All right. So we have 3 more tips to, three more tips to share. And if you have questions, go ahead and type those in as we go along. We will be taking questions, and stay tuned for some resources and giveaways here at the end as well. So our next tip is familiarizing yourself with your state's assistive technology lending program. Now, is this something that every state has? I've actually wondered that myself.
Yes, every state does have some sort of state-funded assistive technology program. They look really different from state to state. Some states, they are kind of smaller and maybe like a physical location that you can go in and check out some devices. In Missouri, we have a pretty robust AT lending program. And the amazing thing about it is that it is both a physical location that if you're close to them, it's in Blue Springs, you can actually go in and hold these devices and check them out, practice programming. It's extremely helpful. But you also have the option to borrow devices from the program for a period of 6 weeks, which is incredibly helpful, both for evaluation purposes, but then also for kind of doing some ongoing trials with maybe clients that you're not entirely sure if they're great AAC candidates or not. It just gives you more time. And then they also have very knowledgeable staff that you can call in and ask questions about different systems. They've got funding resources. So again, I don't know the ins and outs of the AT programs in every state, but every state does have one. And it's certainly worth looking into because, these are free programs that are available, for evaluators of people with these communication needs and should be taken advantage of for sure.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Yeah, so you can search the internet for your state's assistive technology. I just saw that we have somebody watching from Turkey. I don't know about the lending program in Turkey.
Sadly, I do not either, but
You'll have to look. But that's awesome. Welcome from Turkey.
All right. And Carrie, I think I did see a message from you before about where Forbes AAC is located. So the company is based out of Mansfield, Ohio. So that is where our manufacturing facility is, our funding department and tech support team, and a lot of other kind of support staff. And then we've got remote reps like me throughout the country. So I'm based out of St. Louis, and we've got people kind of scattered all over.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, our next tip today for getting those AAC devices into the hands of our students is to ask for help in writing the report if you're not familiar with that process. So what kinds of help should we be looking for, Andrea?
So there's a variety of different types of assistance. So one kind of goes back to getting in touch with your local representatives of your various AAC companies. They often have a wealth of resources available to you when it comes to writing reports. The other place that I would consider checking out is your state's Medicaid website. So An example is Illinois Medicaid. They've got some really great report templates, and they really want you to use those templates too, because then that way they know exactly where to find the information that they're looking for in your reports. Not every state kind of lays things out in such a specific way, but it is helpful actually when they provide those. And then another one is on our website, which is ForbesAAC.com. There are a couple of different places that you can go to get help with completing that funding documentation. So one is there's a category along the top that just says funding. And once you click on that, it takes you to a page where you can enter your state and the funding source that you're working with. And it will then bring up all of the applicable forms and documents that you need to address during the evaluation process. The other thing that we have is a member resources section of our website, and you can find that just right from the homepage as well. So, and when you go to that, it's going to ask you to kind of sign up, and you're not going to get spammed or anything, but it's, we try to make sure that we know who all of the members are so we can reach out to them and have a relationship with these evaluators and SLPs. And once you're a member, you then get access to some really comprehensive report writing resources. So it leads you through the steps of, checking out gross motor skills, fine motor skills, vision and hearing, and, all of the kind of underlying components that you need to take a look at during that AAC evaluation. It even gives you tips about how to word things that help make a clear case for a client needing AAC, because that's really the case that we're making during these evaluations. We're proving medical necessity when you're getting funded through insurance or Medicaid or Medicare. You need to show in your report that, this person is not able to communicate in medical settings, communicate in the case of an emergency without an AAC device. And so those helpful kind of resources and templates guide you in terms of, what do I need to show this client doing during the evaluation, and what do I need to document that they have difficulty with without a device.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's just so great to have so many different resources for writing reports. I think we all struggle with knowing exactly what should be included. So having those templates and those guidelines, that can just be so helpful. I think that's great.
And a huge time saver, which is really important for all of us.
Because, we have tons of time to be writing reports, right? All right, we've got one more tip to share with you, and then we're going to give you some resources and links you can go to, as well as a giveaway here in just a moment. So our last tip is maintaining communication with the manufacturer throughout the funding process. How does that help our clients, Andrea?
So how that helps, what that ends up doing is just making you kind of an active player during that funding process. So, and when I refer to the funding process, for anyone listening who hasn't really gone through this before, that means kind of the time from when you submit your documentation through to, our funding department works with the insurance companies. They submit for what's called prior authorization, and then eventually work towards getting actual approval and payment for the device so it can be shipped. And, during that funding process, what can be really helpful for the evaluator to do is just kind of stay on top of what's going on. What we at Forbes do is send out periodic emails at certain stages of the funding process. So when paperwork has been received, when everything has been collected that's needed, from insurance cards to the report, all of those components. When our funding specialists communicate with the insurance companies about a certain item, like a prior authorization. So we work really hard to keep SLPs in the loop. And but still, there often are some kind of periods of time where some time might pass and you may be a little bit unsure about exactly what stage that client is in the funding process. And I would just encourage people to reach out to the company or your local rep if you do have any questions, because sometimes your advocacy as an SLP can actually help move the process along. Every once in a while, we'll run into a situation where an insurance company is taking kind of an exorbitant amount of time to process a claim, and no, I know it's shocking to everyone, I'm sure. But getting the family involved and having them call the insurance company and advocate for the client can actually move the process. It can actually make a difference. So you as the SLP can sometimes be, the person who is encouraging the family to do that kind of thing. And, playing an active role really can make the whole process work a little bit more efficiently.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Okay, so those are our 5 tips for you today. We're going to do some resources and some giveaways now here on Facebook Live. So for resources, tell us what your favorite resources are for helping with this whole evaluation and funding process. This can be very overwhelming.
Yeah, so, and I mentioned it before, I think the funding section of our website is going to be one of the most helpful places for people to go to. And again, that's forbesaac.com/funding. And then what you will do, and even if you don't have a particular client in mind, you can kind of just peruse the types of forms that are required by various funding sources. A lot of them are very similar from company to company. It's basic demographic information about a client and releases of information to allow us to communicate with the insurance company and that type of thing. So that will be a really big area of support. That member resources section of our website will also be very, very helpful. And again, if you go to ForbesAAC.com and then click on the member resources tab, that's how you'll sign up for that. And then again, your local representatives from AAC companies will be just a huge support to you. And that's another thing that I think when I was an evaluator, I didn't take quite enough advantage of, the wealth of knowledge that your reps have and are more happy to share with you. Mm-hmm. So, know that they're just people too, and don't feel worried about asking too many questions or anything like that, because that's really what they're there for, is to help you through the process.
Yeah, I remember I even reached out to a rep once at a conference and I was like, hey, I have this kid and he's got all these different disabilities and he can't see and he can't touch things. And I'm like, is there even anything they can do? And she's like, oh yeah, we got all these kinds of devices. And I didn't even know they existed. So it can be so helpful just to ask.
Exactly. Yeah. Just don't hesitate to ask is really the biggest thing. There are no stupid questions. They can help you narrow the field. I mean, so many people are up against there's essentially just too much information out there. And how do I know where to start with this kiddo? And that's where reps can just play a really essential role in your professional life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I hope that was helpful to you guys. We're going to do some giveaways here. Usually we do 2 giveaways, but Andrea has been gracious enough to offer us all the free AAC evaluation kit. Andrea, tell us about that and how people can access that, if you would.
Yeah, so the AAC evaluation kit is for evaluators who are completing AAC evals. And what this kit is essentially what's called kind of a conversion kit. So it allows you to take an iPad that you already have with AAC apps on it and convert it into one of our ProSlate devices. So our ProSlate series is a series of dedicated AAC devices. So they're able to be funded through insurance that are on an iPad platform. And so, what that enables you to do is, for a client, get them all of the amazing things about the iPad, but then with specialized hardware and warranty and support that, again, are just such essential components as someone kind of gets up and running with an AAC system. So that AAC evaluation kit, I will, in the show comments, I'm going to just put a link in there to download the application for that. And again, that's, something that's available for anyone who is completing those evaluations. And it's technically a 6-month loan, although if you're making good use of the equipment, it tends to just kind of stay with you. And again, it allows you to say, yes, I have trialed a ProSlate during an evaluation, and here are the things that work about it for any particular client. Because with the ProSlate, what you cannot do is do an evaluation with an iPad and then recommend that a ProSlate go through funding. You need to actually trial the hardware and the device itself. So yeah, this giveaway kind of enables you to take your own iPad, turn it into a ProSlate, and then use it for evaluation purposes.
That's wonderful. Okay, so if you are a speech language pathologist doing those types of AAC evaluations, watch for the link to be dropped in here below the Facebook Live once we end here. Or if you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, head on over to speechandlanguagekids.com. Look for this blog post and you'll find the link there to the application process for becoming a part of that program. And that's for any of you on here. So that's the first giveaway. That's for everyone. We're going to do one more giveaway right now. That is the 2 free months in the Speech Therapy Solution. That is my exclusive membership program for speech language pathologists. We have ASHA CEUs. We have training videos, worksheets. We're answering your questions all week long. We have a team of SLPs in here answering questions. So if you haven't checked that out, head on over to speechandlanguagekids.com/join, and you'll get all the information about that. And we're going to give away 2 free months to someone right here on Facebook Live right now. So all you have to do to win is be the first person to type in the name of an AAC company. So one of the companies that makes AAC devices. Hint, hint, there's one right here. Where are you? There you are. Right there. So you have to be the first one to type in. There is a delay, so be patient if you don't see your answer pop up, or I don't see your answer pop up right away. But thank you so much, Andrea, for coming on. I think this was such a helpful topic. I know that it seems really big and scary, and it's nice to have somebody kind of hold your hand and walk you through this process.
For sure. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I will also be sure in those comments to include, my direct email address for any questions or comments or anything like that anyone wants some additional follow-up on.
Perfect. All right, Heather Kelly, you are the winner of the 2 free months in the Speech Therapy Solution. Congratulations. If you, Heather, I can't remember if you're a member yet or not. If you are a member, we'll add 2 months onto the end. If you are not a member, we'll get you set up with that 2 free months. All you need to do is email us at Carrie, C-A-R-R-I-E, at speechandlanguagekids.com, and we'll get you all set up there. Congratulations. All right, thank you all so much for joining us today. And Andrea, thank you for joining us. Where can people find more about Forbes and all of the wonderful things that you guys have to offer?
Yeah, so our website will be a huge resource. Again, it's ForbesAAC.com. That's ForbesAAC.com. And then if you search for us on Facebook, our Facebook page is Forbes AAC. And you can also feel free to email me. So my email address is Andrea, ANDREAS, at ForbesAAC.com.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you all so much. And look for those links in the comments here below. Andrea will be adding those in momentarily. And thank you all for joining us today. And we'll see you next time on The Speechy Show. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on The Speechy Show. We hope today's tips have helped you feel a little less stressed and a little more confident about your work. If you're looking for more stress busters and confidence boosters, we'd love to have you join us in the Speech Therapy Solution, where you'll get access to a huge library of premium training videos and another library of print and go therapy materials. You can also get help with your tough cases by joining Carrie on the weekly Q&A calls or by posting in the exclusive Facebook group. Plus, group members can join us for a monthly webinar that can be used for continuing education credit. Head on over to speechandlanguagekids.com/join to check out all the amazing benefits of the Speech Therapy Solution membership. Bye for now.